know? What do you think?
I think he's in trouble.
Let's get to Diddy's courtroom meltdown. And you could visibly see that he was very angry.
We all know who's got something to say about this whole Diddy trial, and that's 50 Cent! Those of you who don't know, 50 Cent was the absolute first one banging on Diddy. He's been doing it for over a decade now.
Puffy's confirmed for Shreveport. It's lit! Nah. Everybody scared to drink. Puffy cups. Don't get butt sore.
You're being lied to about what really happened in Diddy's courtroom today. They don't want you to see this. Forget the PR spin. Sources inside reveal Diddy completely unraveled. We're talking a full-blown meltdown, snarling at his own multi-million-dollar lawyers, calling them derogatory names, so out of control that the judge had to shut it down.
Why?
Because new leaked video evidence of his alleged freak-offs reportedly hit the courtroom floor. Baby oil, tapes, and the details are beyond shocking. And 50 Cent? He's on the moon, flooding the internet, saying, "I told you so." This isn't just a trial. It's the revenge tour 50's been dreaming of for decades. This is the story they tried to bury. What you're about to see is crazier than regular crazy. Stay tuned. So, Diddy's world is imploding. Courtroom chaos, shocking allegations. But there's one man nodding along, probably with the biggest, most satisfied grin you've ever seen. Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. Because here's the thing. 50's been trying to tell us about Diddy for years. Decades, even.
Did he do it, right?
Yeah.
I know
He did it.
You've been heavy on social media talking about it.
He did it. And I'm the only one who's been vocal about this long before it actually.
Oh, you've been saying this for a long time now. And then no one was, they're just, why is he saying this? And now it's coming out like crazy.
But I also didn't participate. I also didn't go to those parties.
Yeah.
So a lot of the celebrity culture that you don't hear saying anything is because they participated to a degree.
Was there a reason you never went to those parties back in the day? Obviously, I know what was going on there, but is there a reason you never did?
I'm just not with all that freaky shit. The stuff that he's doing, I'm not into that type of stuff. I'm just a little more, maybe you could say basic or normal.
He threw out claims that Diddy had these, let's call them welcoming rituals for new male artists. Like taking them on shopping sprees that, according to 50, had some seriously questionable ulterior motives. Implied. And get this, years ago, 50 frequently claimed that Diddy was collecting compromising, explicit photos and videos of young men and women who attended his super-exclusive, super-private parties. Sound chillingly familiar now, doesn't it? Back then, it was all chalked up to bitter rivalry. Maybe even payback for Diddy allegedly trying to blackball him in the industry after he got hit. But now those crazy accusations, those hater rants, don't sound like mindless bashing anymore. They sound like warnings. Prophecies, even. Warnings that almost everyone in the industry, and most of us, completely ignored. And now? Now 50's on his undisputed, diamond-encrusted victory lap. His Instagram has basically become the unofficial, and let's be real, infinitely more entertaining, live courtroom commentary. While Diddy's in there fighting for his actual life, 50's out here fighting for likes. And trust me, he's winning by a knockout. But we'll dive much deeper into his current-day trolling masterpieces and Diddy's courtroom theatrics in just a moment. First, you absolutely need to hear the devastating testimony from Cassie Ventura that truly ripped the lid off this entire nightmare.
Puffy's confirmed for Shreveport. It's lit! Nah. That nigga everybody be scared to drink. Puffy cups. Your butt sore.
So, we've established that 50 Cent isn't just throwing Twitter jabs from the sidelines. He's been playing a long game. And part of that game, insiders are whispering, involves ensuring the most damning evidence against Diddy doesn't just see the light of day. It shines a spotlight so bright there's nowhere left for Diddy to hide. We're talking about the now infamous 2016 hotel surveillance video. Many are calling the absolute smoking gun of this entire case. This wasn't some minor piece of evidence buried deep in the trial. Oh no, day one, right after opening statements, the prosecution came out swinging. They led with this. They played the footage for the jury. The raw, silent, but incredibly loud recording of what happened in that Los Angeles hotel hallway. Imagine being a juror, told to be impartial, and then confronted with this. Now, we need to be clear about what this video reportedly shows, and it's deeply disturbing. We see Diddy, wearing only a towel, allegedly pursuing Cassie Ventura down a hallway. Then, the footage reportedly captures him physically mistreating her, striking her, throwing her to the ground, and even kicking her as she's down. He's then seen allegedly grabbing her belongings and attempting to drag her. Later, after Cassie makes her way to a hotel phone, Diddy reportedly returns, appears to grab at the phone, and then sits in a chair opposite her, eventually throwing a vase in her direction, shattering it. It's a sequence of events that's hard to process, let alone watch. The prosecution strategy here was clear: hit hard and hit early. They framed Diddy as a jealous, powerful, and violent man, alleging he ran a decades-long criminal enterprise where he forced women into acts. This video wasn't just about one terrible incident. It was a clear window into the alleged pattern of control and violence. Diddy's defense, on the other hand, had to acknowledge the undeniable. They conceded the video does show domestic violence, an instance of mistreatment, but they argued it doesn't prove racketeering. It doesn't prove the major charges he's actually on trial for. It was a desperate attempt to contain the damage. Many observers felt it wasn't enough.
Well, I think the first thing for the public to know that this is the first piece of evidence, kind of, if you will, is to have everyone remember how serious it was when we all saw it. And even though these jurors are expected to be unbiased and detached from anything in Diddy's world, so we're assuming they perhaps haven't seen the video, they now are probably going to feel the same way that the American public did when there was accusations and then there was some proof of it. So obviously there's a conversation. The prosecution is framing Diddy as a serial, but on the other hand, Diddy's defense is saying he's flawed but not criminal. And so we're seeing somebody that actually has Cassie has admitted his defense is saying, yes, he's made mistakes, but that does not mean he's a trafficker and all the other things that he is accused of. But I think, you know, it pulls on the heartstrings and detaches people completely in any way that they may have been to the entertainer to now look at him as the human being that did something egregious, perhaps, and trying to connect the dots between if you are capable and open to doing something like this, what else might you do? And so I think it was a strong way to open up the argument. And I think that Diddy's team is going to have an uphill battle to climb to try to put that to the wayside of the jury's mind.
And who was one of the first people to truly understand what happened that day? Israel Flores, a former security guard at that hotel, now an LAPD officer. He testified that he received a call about a woman in distress. He found Cassie, in his words, scared, in a corner, her face hidden with a hood, and there was a destroyed flower vase nearby. Flores also testified that Diddy, after telling him they were just arguing, later called him back, threw a sack of money at him, and told him, "Don't tell anyone." When Flores refused the money, and later when Diddy allegedly tried to snatch his and another hotel employee's phones, thinking they were recording, Flores testified that he had to physically pin Diddy to the wall to de-escalate the situation. Talk about a hero stepping up.
They talked about that previously, but clearly they tried to remove these videos. And he talks about how he took some on his own phone. As the transcript, sorry, there's so many transcripts. I'm making sure I gather you everything. He says he took video of the video to show his wife because he knew no one would believe it. He wanted to show his wife. So there was a copy on his phone as well, ironically. So yeah, interesting details. And kudos to this guy. My goodness, to have the strength to be able to stand up to Diddy, to pin him against the wall, to confront him in that courtroom. I applaud this guy wholeheartedly. Bravo to him for standing up. And bravo to Cassie, who is out there still giving her testimony. We'll be reporting on her as well. We had an amazing conversation yesterday.
Now, let's bring it back to 50 Cent. Sources suggest that while snippets of this video had previously leaked, the full unedited multi-angle version presented in court, the one showing every horrifying detail, had a little, let's call it, logistical support from 50's camp in reaching the prosecution. 50 knew this footage was out there. He knew how devastating it was, and according to these whispers, he made sure it wouldn't get buried or watered down. He wanted the world, and more importantly, that jury, to see exactly what he'd been hinting at for years. Of course, 50's public reaction was pure, unadulterated 50. While the courtroom was reeling, his Instagram was probably blowing up with posts like, "See what I tell y'all," or some perfectly timed meme about karma finally collecting its dues. He's not just enjoying this, he's using it as a masterclass in "I told you so," all while positioning himself as the guy who was brave enough to speak out when others were silent, or worse, complicit. And through all of this, we have to remember Cassie Ventura testifying against a powerful ex, reliving these moments, and she did so while being very visibly pregnant, 8.5 months by reports. Imagine the courage that takes. Her presence alone, that undeniable visual of a mother-to-be recounting such traumatic events, undoubtedly adds another profound layer of emotional weight for everyone in that courtroom. So, the smoking video, allegedly with a helping hand from 50 Cent's network, has been fired. The jury's seen the chilling footage. Diddy's trying to play the flawed man card, but it's a tough sell against such graphic evidence. And this, believe it or not, is just scratching the surface of what's been coming out in this trial. Next up, we'll delve into the equally disturbing details of Cassie's own testimony about the freak-offs, the baby oil, and the life of control she allegedly endured.
The star witness is Cassie. She was a singer, Cassie Ventura. She signed with him when she was 18 years old, or right around there. She became a singer. She signed like a 10-record deal with Bad Boy Records, which is his. And within like 2 years, he started having. And he was with a different woman at the time, but shockingly, he wasn't faithful. And started sleeping with Cassie. And then she testified how in the beginning, by the way, when she took the stand, she was 8.5 months pregnant yesterday. His side was so worried about that making her look overly sympathetic that they asked if she could be brought in and put on the stand without the jury in the room. Look at this. I mean, like, apparently they're not exaggerating. She had that enormous belly that we all get in the very, very last few days, which is where, like, it becomes like voyeuristic to even look at a woman at that point. It's just out of control. God bless you, Cassie. So anyway, the judge overruled that and said she can walk in, her full pregnant self, and she did. And she testified about how he started very early on telling her he wanted her to participate in these freak-offs. That's what he called them. And these things, I mean, it's the right word for them. I mean, they're absolutely depraved behavior where he would hire these male and she's testifying, this is all, her testimony, that they would come over and that Sean Combs would be there watching and directing everything, and that there would be multiple within the one freak-off, which could go for days. But even if it went for hours, there'd be multiple sessions in which she would have to perform with these male including in like outfits and fishnets and masquerade masks and hooker heels is how it was described. And he would tell him exactly what he wanted and how, and then he would participate in some of them. We talked yesterday, forgive me listening audience, about how he allegedly, both himself and through the male urinated on her and I guess in her mouth, to where she testified she was gagging. She thought she was going to throw up. She testified that the freak-offs, quote, became a job where there was no space to do anything else but to recover and to just feel normal again, that they could go from 36 hours to as long as 4 days, that they took, quote, a big chunk of my life, sometimes on a nearly weekly basis. At the end of the sessions, the hotel linens were often very soiled with baby oil residue, as well as bodily fluids, including blood and urine. And his staff, keep in mind, he's being accused of like racketeering, like the way a mob boss does, where he has an enterprise of criminals around him. That's why these details are important, that his staff would both set up the freak-off rooms and clean up the freak-off rooms, that eventually they graduated to adding like television lighting, like Klieg lights in there.
The hotel surveillance video painted a grim picture. But it was Cassie Ventura's own words from the stand that truly began to unravel the extent of the alleged control and degradation she endured for days. She recounted her experiences, and a recurring, bizarre, and deeply unsettling theme emerged: baby oil. Lots and lots of baby oil. Cassie testified for days about what Diddy allegedly called freak-offs. These were described as often powder-fueled encounters, sometimes lasting for days, and frequently involving male escorts. She depicted them not as spontaneous acts, but as a very choreographed experience, with Diddy allegedly orchestrating every single detail like a twisted director on a film set from hell.
Diddy controlled everything about these freak-offs, according to Cassie. She says that he decided who the escorts would be. He would approve the escorts before she contacted them. He would pick the locations. He would set the lighting, even placing candles and moving them around during the course of the freak-offs. And he would determine what she did with the escort. He would tell her what to do, and then telling him, where to. Very, very, graphic and explosive testimony from Cassie. And I think, being in the overflow room when she was talking about it, there were gasps when she said that.
Something else that came up that we've heard a lot about before is the baby oil aspect. The defense addressed this in their opening statement, saying, you've probably heard of his love of baby oil, that's not a federal crime. But in this side of the story we heard from Cassie, we started to hear how that baby oil was being used and how it was in an environment that made her feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah. So I think the importance of the baby oil, and today it's something that the prosecution was asking her over and over about how many bottles of baby oil did you use, which shockingly she said that they would go through sometimes over 10 bottles of baby oil during one freak off. They would have to have more baby oil brought in. And I think the element that the prosecution is getting at here is the racketeering element. The baby oil is being used to portray this whole operation that Diddy had around him, you know, assistants and chiefs of staff and things like that, bringing in stuff to the freak offs, whether it was drugs that assistants would bring in, or lubricant or baby oil, which is something that was very heavily talked about. Cassie also said that she was just doused in baby oil. She would be forced to have it rubbed all over her, rubbed all over the escort. She said by the end of the freak-offs, the rooms were often covered in baby oil. The linens were completely soiled. The furniture was messed up, and that Diddy would get these really high bills from the hotel about replacing the furniture and things like that.
And a key element of this alleged choreography, according to her testimony? Baby oil. She said Diddy wanted her glistening constantly. If she looked dry, he would allegedly order her to reapply, sometimes as often as every 5 minutes. Imagine that, not just the acts themselves, but the constant, meticulous control over her appearance, down to the very shine on her skin. She testified that they would use close to 10 large bottles of Johnson's brand baby oil during each of these alleged freak-offs. Think about that volume. She described the oil being heated up, a closed bottle placed in a sink filled with hot water, before being applied liberally all over her and the escorts. The aftermath, as she described it, was hotel rooms left as a mess, linen soiled with baby oil residue, bodily fluids everywhere, furniture damaged. And when the prosecutor repeatedly asked whose decision it was to incorporate these elements, the baby oil, the male escorts, the specific acts, Cassie's answer, according to court reports, was always the same: Sean.
Diddy allegedly told her to get into an inflatable pool filled with baby oil and lube. Court transcriptions obtained by Law and Crime show the prosecutor asked, "Who, if anyone, asked you to get into the pool?" Ventura responded, "Sean, it was his idea." The prosecutor asked, "Did you want to get into a pool of baby oil?" Ventura responds, "At that point, I couldn't say no. It would have been all bad." After an objection, the prosecutor then asks, "What concerns did you have about not getting into the pool with baby oil?" Ventura responds, "That, amongst other things, just his temper. If that is something that he wanted, Sean wanted it to happen, that's what was going to happen. There wasn't another way around it."
One particularly disturbing incident she recounted involved an inflatable pool. Cassie testified that Diddy instructed her to get into this blow-up pool, which had been filled with baby oil and lubricants, while wearing an outfit and shoes. This wasn't a playful suggestion, according to her.
We all know who's got something to say about this whole Diddy trial, and that's 50 Cent! Those of you who don't know, 50 Cent was the absolute first one banging on Diddy. He's been doing it for over a decade now. So, today we found out that Cassie said that Diddy asked her to get in an inflatable pool full of baby oil. Y'all remember that movie Old School where they had the KY wrestling in the pool? Sounds like he's ripping that off. 50 immediately started making AI images of Diddy and took to Instagram with these, like, look at this. This goofy ass shit right here is my favorite, and it shows why 50 will always be the king of trolls.